Prometheus and the Original Sin. I just attended a talk in the classics department about the narrative of decline, and it gave me a few thoughts that I want to discuss here. And one is that I guess capitalism, which is closely related to technological progress, optimism, all these things, they are, as great as they could be interpreted as the original sin. And I want to go back to Prometheus, which is Greek mythology, where Prometheus shows humans how to use fire, and Zeus gets very angry at him and punishes him. And that kind of idea proliferates throughout human history, at least since antiquity, and is closely related to the idea of fear, and maybe even decline, which is associated with technological progress, which I understand might sound paradoxical, but let me take two opposing views of today to illustrate this point. On the one hand, we have David Deutsch and The Beginning of Infinity, which is one of the books that underlines our principle stack. I mean, we are fully on board with the idea that human ingenuity can drive progress and make the world better. We're also heavily invested in Elon Musk. So we're subscribing to that idea. But there's the other side, and I want to call the climate change mafia, let's say, the people who are obsessed with climate change. That German girl, whatever she is, that always pops up as a lot of protect the environment, blah blah blah. Like, that is a narrative of decline, right? Because even if climate change, which is a bad problem in itself, it's a bad scientific problem, and that's not a political statement, it's just a bad scientific problem is a problem that doesn't have a clear definition and therefore also cannot have a clear solution. For example, too much carbon in the atmosphere, if we decide to reduce the carbon in the atmosphere, if that's what we decide to do, then we can decarbonize the economy. So we have a definition of a problem, and then we have a solution. So that's a good problem. So sorry for the tangent. I just want to say, in principle, climate change is a narrative of decline, because the solution that the narrative brings to bear, so basically what people really want is to stop progress, to stop innovation, to somehow bring back the past. And in this talk, and the links in the show notes, in this talk, the professor talks about Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings, and tries to sort of counteract that narrative of decline with Tolkien's more positivistic attitude towards progress, which is, in The Lord of the Rings, I haven't read the book or seen the movie, but I believe it's sort of, as he says, the seeds of progress are in human history, and we should follow those. So I want to contrast those 2 points and discuss them. And I think my conclusion is that I guess you have to look at this in a sort of Marxist way, right? It is a power struggle. It's a struggle between the people who win and everybody else who loses in the game of technology. And this goes back to Prometheus. I mean, why is Zeus angry at somebody who shows fire to humans? What's wrong with that? And the answer is that probably what's wrong with that is that humans will eat themselves, like they will destroy themselves by using fire. And if you now replace fire with technology and technical progress, you see where I'm going. I mean, we have nukes now, we have CRISPR, we have AI. Everything is about safety and this and that. So we're scared of this. Now, this is one narrative. I would say there's another narrative, in my opinion, a little bit more bleak, but also Marxist, which is that we have a narrative of stagnation, or the call for stagnation and the call um, for sort of a narrative of decline, which comes from the idea that we don't want progress because we want to solidify our market position. So, for example, Google doesn't want progress in self-driving cars because they are behind Tesla and they want to solidify their position as a self-driving car company. I mean, this is just one example, of course, but I guess you see where I'm going. For example, Google and Meta, they are so concerned about alignment and large language models and all of that stuff, when in reality they have a very strong market position in AI, and any kind of progress, and particularly startups, starting to eat away from their cake is not very convenient for their monopoly position. So we have to stop progress. We have to stop, innovation, because we need to decide what is safe and what is not safe. When you hear the word safety, typically it's related to some sort of narrative of decline. And this is absolutely controversial. I understand some people might say, how can you even say that? We need safety in technology. Yes, of course we do, but it's being convoluted with the call for stopping progress, because progress is going too fast for people who are protecting their market position. So having said that, now let's get back to the conversation. I want to bring it, like I said, I have this Marxist explanation for the narratives of decline, and the explanation is that it is the fear of being displaced by technology which drives the narrative of decline. But if I go back to Prometheus, or if I take another example of a narrative of decline, which I believe is not Marxist, and that is Faust and the Sorcerer's Apprentice, two pieces by Goethe, which in my opinion are in the same family of not necessarily a narrative of decline per se, but a warning that, listen, we have to be careful with using fire. So this is, I would say, Prometheus and Faust and the Sorcerer's Apprentice are all in the same, and I would put in Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann also. Those are the works that I've read. I'm sure there's more works, but those are the kinds of works that I read that make me think about, okay, what is technological progress really doing? Is it really such a good thing, or are we kidding ourselves? And you could even bring in the existentialists. You could bring in people like Sartre and Hesse and well, those are the two I know. Camus. Okay, look, I don't know what's right and wrong, but what I do matters. And whether it's technology or whether it's refusing technology, what I end up actually doing is what matters. And if I use technology for good, then it's good. And if I use it for bad, then it's bad. But the technology itself, it's independent of the user. The technology lives its own life, and it's me, it's the person, the human, which does something with it. And I think that is the narrative that is in support of technology, beyond just what David Deutsch is saying. Because we have to, like, if we take David Deutsch, or generally the narrative in Silicon Valley, which is, look, progress is good, solving problems is good, or even Karl Popper, let's replace existing ideas with better ideas. Okay, we can take that, but why is that a good thing? Maybe what we have or what we had in the past is a good thing too. Why do we have to always replace stuff? And the answer to that is, well, because we can keep improving. We can get better. We can do better. So if we can do better, it will be a waste not to do better. We can bring in John Rawls here, or Kant, and say, look, a society it's a sort of free energy that we're not using. A society is unfair if we can improve without hurting people. Like, let's say, if we can bring in a new technology, if we can bring a self-driving car that allows people to drive around for 50 cents a mile with a much better experience, if we can do that, everybody is going to be better off. and maybe a few people will lose their jobs, but at the grand scheme of things, most people will be better off. So why would we not do that? Like just because a few people lose their jobs, and this is the narrative that the opponents of technological progress use. Let's say the canonical example is the California Coastal Commission that wants to stop SpaceX because sharks could be affected by rockets falling in the water. I mean, you're looking for the little, like one corner in the space of action, one corner in the action space that could be affected by the technology, and you're neglecting all the other positives just because you want to stop the technology, right? I mean, this is a tell. This is a sign that you're talking to people that are biased and that are using things like safety, for example, not because they're really concerned about safety, but they're just concerned about their market position. It's the same with, AI alignment. For example, if you're so concerned about a racist comment that could be made by a large language model, then you're not, because you're going to always have some sort of offensive language almost in everything. Like anybody can find offense in something that is said. So you want to stop the progress of artificial general intelligence just because there's a risk that a model does something that humanity has been doing for thousands of years. I mean, that's ridiculous. And clearly, what you're trying to do is stop the technology. And you're not really concerned about the actual concern. And not just that you're not concerned. By saying things like that, you're actually ridiculing the real concern that should be there. I mean, there is a case to be made to discuss the risk of let's say, racist comments by large language models. That we can talk about this, but we're not going to stop the technology now and ridicule the whole progress and ridicule the whole concern about safety just because you want to, let's say you have an axe to grind with, I don't know, OpenAI, or you have an axe to grind with X or whatever. So my point is, I think the Marxist interpretation of the narratives of decline helps us understand why we are actually doing it. It's good to know why. And the reason why we're doing it is because it's a power struggle. And once we accept that, we can then channel the conversation into more productive avenues. For example, we can say, look, if we bring in a new technology, we can talk about the winners and losers. Let's put it out there. Let's be transparent. Who is winning and who is losing? And how are we going to deal with the losers? This is like somebody once said, like any kind of policy, let's say energy policy or immigration policy or gender policy or any kind of policy is always going to be wrong if it's isolated. For example, immigration policy, if the policy of immigration is just to open your borders, that's a bad policy. But if the policy of immigration is a complex system of we're opening the borders for certain types of immigrants, we're building housing for them, we're building schooling for them, we're building opportunities for them, we're also organizing the societies which are affected by this, that could be a good policy. And this is kind of how, let's say, countries like Switzerland and Singapore operate, and that's why they're so successful. So you have to put a context. So the same with technological progress. If we accept, let's say, technological progress as a given, if we say, look, it's going to happen and we want it, then how about we talk about what we're going to do with people that get displaced? What are we going to do with technologies that go wrong? Let's say if we have a process in place that can deal with, what if robots get misused? If bad players take certain technologies and use them for bad, how do we deal with that? Do we have law enforcement in place to even anticipate that? Do we have a legal system which deals with that? So we have a comprehensive approach towards technological progress instead of this binary sort of Navy SEAL type. We just go in and out. We just want to get rid of this type of research or that type of research. That's a bad idea because we don't know, we can't, and this is my problem with Daron Amanoglu, or I might be butchering his name, the Nobel Prize winner in economics from MIT, right? I agree with his message, and I only saw a speech that he gave at the Side Business School of Oxford. I agree with his message, which is, it's a bit snidey, but he says we have to have a comprehensive solution for technology. That I agree with. I also agree with that we can't just listen to Elon Musk. when it comes to technology. I agree with that too. Even though I have all my money invested with Elon Musk, I agree that he doesn't have all the truths in the world. He's still the most conscientious and democratic CEO in the world. So if anybody runs AI, it better be him than, let's say, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg or the people at Google or even worse, Microsoft or something. However, Daron's message is very binary. It's just, oh, this is bad, and we need to organize technology so it benefits us. Well, that's a bad problem to start with, like, because we don't know what it means. We don't know what technology means. We don't know what organize means, and we don't know what benefit means. So this is just an open-ended gibberish. Instead, what we need is a comprehensive policy towards technological progress, and it should be more in a John Rawls type of way, which is sort of under the veil of ignorance, right? I don't know on which side I'm going to be. I want to have a system, whether I'm a winner or a loser. For example, my son wants to study physics, and it's very possible that he ends up studying in a field that will become incredibly interesting. It's also possible that he will study in a field where it's going to be hard to get jobs. So we should have a policy in place that, even though we don't know, he, let's say, as a hypothetical decision maker, should make a decision about what kind of laws and what kind of processes and what kind of social safety nets we have in place for everybody who is in physics, not just the winners. So we need a comprehensive solution, and that's where I'm sort of a little bit in disagreement with people like Daron, who is, in my opinion, a narrative of decline under the veil of economics, and that is very dangerous because he's considered a serious scientist who deals with economics, when in fact he is just a better version of a climate change activist or something like that. And that's not very helpful for somebody who's in a position to get Nobel Prizes, because it can be misunderstood and misinterpreted and so on and so forth. So the conclusion, I think, as usual, when I go to these talks in the classics department, they're very inspirational, because the classics people, they have something that historians don't have, literature people don't have, philosophers don't have. They have an approach towards life from the antiquity time, from the times of antiquity, and that was a very interesting time, because that was the first time, at least in Western culture, or maybe in human culture, all over, where freedom was a concept. Okay, freedom was a thing, and we still live that today. And because freedom was a thing, whether it's the introduction of Roman law, the institutions of inclusive institutions, all of these things were new, and they started with antiquity, particularly with the Greeks, and then with the Romans, and so on and so forth, Enlightenment, and here we are today. We are the United States of America, particularly the west coast of the United States of America, is the torch that is still carried from the Greek times. Freedom, tolerance, democracy, progress, technology. But we also have Prometheus. So what do we do with Prometheus in today? Prometheus would be Stanford today. Is what we do here really a good thing? Well, it's a good thing. Of course, it creates lots of jobs and people are happy about new technologies, but it also creates a narrative of decline. And I think the best way to deal with that is to accept the Marxist view that, look, technology displaces people, end of story. And how can we deal with this? We need to build comprehensive institutions that deal with that, anticipate problems, and not be, technology is not the problem. This is the main message. Technology is not the problem. The problem is the lack of comprehensive institutions to deal with technological progress. Once we accept technological progress as a given, and we take this not as an original sin, we're not Prometheus and Zeus, and we yell at each other because we meaning the technologists are showing how fire can be used. No, we are here because we're driving good things. We're making life better for everybody. But we also are displacing people, and that needs to be taken into account. So again, technology is not the problem. The problem is the lack of comprehensive institutions. Thank you.